welcome everybody to Pontiac Enchanté. My name is Carson Becke. I am the artistic director of this series, and I'm the performer for today's concert. Those of you that are in the Ottawa region will know that the weather today is glorious. It's kind of early spring, and it's finally looking like summer is just around the corner. So that's a wonderful part about today. Today is one of the hardest days that we've had to deal with here at the farm. There was a tragic accident last night that killed 2 members of our Venturing Hills team and family. Out of respect for the families, I'm not going to say the names of those 2 individuals, but I would just like to say that they were extremely close to us. They both lived on the property, and they will be deeply missed. So this concert today is dedicated to their memories, to their families who are going through a lot, and to everybody that loved them. That was a lot of people. They were very well-loved members of our community. So my heart goes out to them, and may their souls rest in peace, and this concert today is for them. You're all watching today's concert on our virtual concert hall. This is a platform that we've built using the Page Cloud website designer, which is where our whole website is hosted. And there's a few features available to you on this page that will make your viewing experience today a little bit more enjoyable. So first of all, I would recommend that you download the concert program, which you can do by clicking on the Download Concert Program button on the left. There's a slight problem with that feature right now, so be aware that when you click that, it will actually close the concert hall window, so just make sure that you go back to the window. You'll figure it out, but that's how you can download the program for today's concert. On the viewer itself, if you would like to make the concert go to full screen for a more immersive experience, click on the little square in the bottom right of the viewer, and feel free to juggle around the volume controls. Make sure that you're listening at a volume that you're comfortable with. Finally, today's concert is presented for free, but we would encourage you to donate whatever you would like through the donate button on the right-hand side of the screen. Those of you that watched our last concert, which featured Duo Octavian, myself, and my fellow pianist, Søren Barry, know that that concert was a fundraiser in support of the ongoing EHV1 horse epidemic that we've been dealing with here at the farm. That epidemic is now a worldwide epidemic. It's taken root in barns across Europe, across the United States, and in Canada as well, so it's become a much bigger problem. I was totally blown away by the levels of support you gave to us at our last concert. In total, we managed to make a donation from Pontiac Enchanté to our barn of $3,500. So thank you so much for your support. And just a quick update on the situation. So generally things are getting better. We have 1 horse right now who is at the St. Hyacinthe Animal Hospital near Montreal, receiving intensive treatment, but it looks like she's going to pull through. So our animals are all becoming or getting closer to stable condition. And we're now about to start the 21-day period where we have to continue doing extensive quarantine and keeping up safety precautions around the animals and controlling people in the space. After that period is finished, we have a 100-day period where we have to still monitor what's going on, but some restrictions are loosened. So it looks like we're slowly on our way out of that. And a huge thank you to you for your support. Basically, all the money that was donated through the concert series, but also through the larger fundraising campaign in general, has gone towards animal care. So it really has all been totally necessary, and we really appreciate everything that you've done to help us through that. You'll have seen in the introductory clip, there was sort of a slideshow going on where I listed quite a few organizations and people that have helped us put on this online concert series. I'm not going to go through them now because I'd like to talk to you a bit about the program I'm playing today, but just to say another thank you to all those organizations and people. We're going to show that slideshow again as a short intermission so you can read a bit more about them. And also a huge thank you to our sponsors. Without the help of our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to do this. We especially wouldn't be able to do these live stream concerts because they require so much more equipment and setup than a normal in-person event. So a huge thank you to everybody and every organization that helps and sponsors this concert series. If this is your first Pontiac Enchanté concert, first of all, welcome. I know we have viewers across Canada. I know we have some viewers today in the United Kingdom. I think we have some in Germany as well. So welcome to all of you to our home here in Luskville, Quebec. If it's your first time joining us, the best way for you to come back is to join our emailing list. That's more or less the only way that we publicize our concerts. You can do that easily. Just click on the orange button in the right-hand corner of your screen, and then you'll receive updates from us. Don't worry, we're not going to spam you every week, but we do update you on what concerts are coming up next. And other information like if we're able to offer in-person tickets, which as we move out of this pandemic is going to become more and more unpredictable. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again quite soon, but the best way to know is to join our emailing list. So that's what you should do right now. Okay, so a little bit about today's program. You'll know that this concert is called Symphonies and Operas in Black and White. I thought as a way of marking the one-year anniversary of the declaration of the global pandemic and of all of our lockdowns and essentially a total rewriting of the rule book for daily life and how we do everything in the world, I thought it would be appropriate to build a concert program that spoke to that a little bit. Within the music industry, many of you will have watched our live stream concerts. There's many other organizations that have found ways to continue presenting live music through this live stream medium. For instance, the Ottawa Chamberfest is doing great things. Music and Beyond, Music at Southminster are just, and the NEC, of course, are just some organizations in the Ottawa region that have been doing that very, very effectively. However, some kinds of music are harder to present than others. When you're presenting a solo pianist, it's pretty easy because there's nobody around me that I'm going to give COVID to or that I'm going to receive COVID from. If you're trying to present a full-scale opera, that's much more difficult because just by the nature of the event, the cast has to be close together, the orchestra plays in a confined space. So large-scale music making has not been as prevalent through the pandemic, although there have been some attempts to do that in different ways too. So I thought presenting a program that I guess evoked some of the sounds that I think we all miss very much of being at a symphonic concert or at an opera would be an appropriate way of marking this rather grim one-year milestone. So for the first half today, I'm playing all transcriptions of music by Puccini and Richard Strauss. I'm going to start with my own Tosca Fantasy, which is essentially, I like to think of it as a summary of Act 1 of Puccini's Tosca, which is one of my absolute favorite operatic acts. This was a project that I undertook very early in the pandemic when I found out that we were going into lockdown and that for the foreseeable future, the world was kind of suspended last March. I knew exactly what I was going to do because this is a project that I've had ideas about for many years but haven't really had the time to sit down and thoroughly do. So for the first month and a half, I guess, of the pandemic, I was sitting right here working on this fantasy. So really, the pandemic has given me the opportunity to bring this project to life. I'm not going to give you a full synopsis of the opera, but just to give you a sense of what this music is about. This whole act is set in the Basilica of Sant'Andrea della Valle in the middle of Rome in 1800. It's actually very specifically in 1800. And the central characters of the opera are Floria Tosca, who of course is the title character, Mario Cavaradossi, who is her lover and sort of the hero character, and the bad guy is named Baron Scarpia. Essentially in this act, Cavaradossi and Tosca are trying to find a way to smuggle a fugitive who has kind of fallen foul of Baron Scarpia and the law out of Rome. Scarpia suspects that they're trying to do that, so he decides that he's going to essentially use Tosca's love of Mario to try and uncover this plot. To me, the most important thing here is just remembering that all of this music is happening in the confines of a massive cathedral. And the very last scene, which I'm going to play in full at the end of this paraphrase, features essentially an end-of-day Te Deum to the glory of God service. So I'm trying to evoke the sounds of a full choir singing a Te Deum Mass. There's an organ playing in the background. There's a cannon firing in the distance, which is signaling the escape of this prisoner. It's an incredibly dramatic scene. So I will just let you imagine all those things happening as I try and evoke the sounds of Puccini's opera Tosca through the piano. So here is my Tosca Fantasy. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was my Tosca Fantasy based on Act 1 of Giacomo Puccini's Tosca. If you're a pianist, or if you know a pianist, and you might like to play that piece, actually you're in kind of luck. I've recently launched my new website, which you can visit at carsonbecke.com. On that site, you can actually, in the right-hand corner, similar to the Pontiac Enchanté website, you can join my mailing list, where I send out monthly updates about things that I'm doing, about concerts that are coming up, when there are concerts coming up, about new recordings coming out, and just general news that I think you might want to know if you're interested in what I'm doing. Also on that site, if you go to the menu bar, you'll see one of the selections is store. So I have an online store that's now up and running, and on that store you can purchase my transcriptions. So that's available. The next piece that you're going to hear on the program, my transcription of Richard Strauss's Zur Eignung, is also available. As is a transcription of Wagner's Träume from the Wesendonck Lieder. So all of those are available on my site. On that page, you can also find my CDs. You can buy physical copies. Some of you might know what happens when you listen to music on streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music. You can find my albums there as well. But so let's say you listen to a track by me on Spotify. I get exactly 0.04 cents per listen on those tracks, as does any other artist that you listen to. So if you're actually interested in supporting artists, the best way to do so is by buying their physical CDs. So you can buy mine on my website there as well. The next set of pieces are all transcriptions of music by Richard Strauss. Like I mentioned, the first piece is my own transcription of his song Zur Eignung. The second is a transcription by the wonderful early 20th century German pianist Walter Gieseking of another song, a very famous song called Ständchen or Serenade. The third transcription I'm going to play is very special in this concert in that I believe this is the first time this transcription is being heard in Canada. And I believe I'm the first person to play this transcription who is not the transcriber or the sort of pianist-composer himself. This is a transcription of the very beautiful and very famous trio from the end of Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier by the wonderful Russian pianist Konstantin Sukovetsky, who lives in New York City. I was introduced to him by David Jalbert, who's head of piano here at Ottawa University, and I'm very grateful to David for making the introduction because I've always been looking for other pianists who are interested in finding ways of playing Strauss's rather complicated orchestral textures at the piano. And thanks to David, I found Konstantin and this wonderful transcription. So I hope you enjoy that. And then the final transcription is one by Percy Grainger, who was a rather eccentric Australian pianist, also lived in the early 20th century. He was famous for doing interesting things like running naked between cities where he played concerts. So if he had a concert scheduled in Sydney, wherever he was before that, he would run there, and he would run there naked. He was a staunch nudist. So Percy Grainger was an interesting character. If you'd like some good reading, I would look him up online. And this transcription of the duet from Rosenkavalier, which actually follows the trio in the opera without a break, is wonderful in a totally different way from the other three that I'm playing. I think it's actually very fitting for this time as well, because it's almost like an improvisation based on something that you heard a year ago. You can't quite remember how the tune goes. You can't really remember what key it was in, but you sort of know that it went something like that. And it's to me, this is like a transcription as heard through a long memory of a piece that you heard a long time ago. It's not at all what Strauss wrote. It has very little to do with the orchestral score, but he just kind of makes it this wonderful evocation of this beautiful duet from the end of Der Rosenkavalier. Finally, in the spirit of Richard Strauss himself, who was a very good pianist, performed often with singers in concert, he would do something in his concerts that was quite common for the time. He would improvise little transition passages between the songs on the program. And I'm going to attempt to do that today as well. I'm going to link together the first two, and then I'm going to link together the two numbers from Rosenkavalier. As I think they're linked in the opera anyways, I sort of think that it's kind of nice if they can be linked here too. So here are 4 transcriptions of music by Richard Strauss. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Those were 4 transcriptions of music by Richard Strauss. We're now going to take a short intermission, and I'll be back very soon with Julius Reibke's Piano Sonata in B-flat minor. Thank you very much. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to that first half. And to finish the concert today, for the second half of this program, I'm going to be playing Julius Reubke's Piano Sonata in B-flat minor. I'm guessing that this is not a piece that many of you have come across. It's not a particularly well-known piece. I sort of feel like I'm kind of on a mission to make it better known because I believe that it deserves a lot more attention than it currently gets. This was another one of my early COVID projects. At the same time that I was writing my Tosca Fantasy, which you heard at the beginning of the first half, I was working on this sonata. And again, I thought, when will I ever have time like this where I can sit down and learn a piece like this? And when I start playing it, I think you'll know what I mean. It's a kind of workout from beginning to end. Part of the reason the piece is not that well known is that Reubke died very young. He died at the age of 24 in 1858. Like so many in the 19th century, he died of syphilis. He was a student of Franz Liszt. Liszt played this piece often after Reubke's death and talked about it as one of the great piano sonatas of the century. And just wished that Reubke had lived longer because he really felt that he was one of the most talented young composers that he'd ever worked with. So at the time of his death, Reubke really only left two large pieces. He left this piano sonata and an organ sonata, which is of similar proportions and a similarly kind of big piece with a lot of gravitas to it. But otherwise, just a few songs for voice and piano, a shorter piece for piano, and fragments of music. And I think it's one of the big questions. If this guy had lived a full life, what would he have produced? Would he have given us music that is as well known as the music of, say, Wagner or Richard Strauss? I think he had the talent to do that, but just, of course, never had the chance to. However, we are so lucky to have this one gigantic piano sonata, which is very much modeled on the sonata of Franz Liszt that many of you might know. Liszt's sonata was groundbreaking when it was written because it was half an hour of continuous music, and he did away with the whole idea of individual movements. He wrote this kind of mega sonata, which did have movements built into it, but they all flowed into each other. Almost in an improvisatory way, almost like the pianist was connecting these movements with improvisations that were fully composed out. But the themes between all the movements linked together, and in the end, it has the feeling of being one massive 30-minute piece. And Reubke has tried to do exactly the same thing with this sonata. You'll hear themes in the first movement, themes and ideas, which get recycled in both the second and third movements. And I like to think about this sort of as a bit of a life raft. You know, if you're surfing in super high waves, you kind of want something to hang on to so that you can stay above the surf. So I'm just going to show you two of the themes that I think are important just as kind of pointers to follow through the piece, because these themes keep getting transformed and recycled in different ways. And if you hear them coming out, you'll understand what's going on in the piece. You'll hear essentially the struggle of this one theme to come out and triumph, essentially. And I think in the end, the piece has a very optimistic message. So here are the two themes I'd like to show you. The first one I think of as a kind of redemption theme. It's very introspective, but it tends towards the end of the piece, it becomes more and more grand, and eventually is the triumphant theme at the end of the piece. So here is what I call the redemption theme. So that is our kind of redemptive, introspective theme. The other one is the very first thing you hear in the piece. In fact, I'm not going to play it for you because it is literally the first thing that you'll hear me play, and it's just a three-note idea. And if you listen closely, that three-note idea gets used all over the piece. It becomes the main theme of the last movement. It becomes the kind of thing that allows the redemptive theme that I just played you to kind of blossom into its full triumphant self at the end of the piece. It features everywhere. The more I practice the piece, I find little places where this theme crops up that I hadn't noticed before. It's like a book where if you read it again and again, you find more and more little details that you weren't aware of the first time. So it's a real privilege for me to have had the chance to work on this piece, and I feel very privileged in being able to share it for you today. So here is Julius Reubke's Piano Sonata in B-flat minor. Thank you. Thank you all very much for listening to today's concert. That was Julius Reubke's Sonata in B-flat minor. My name is Carson Becke. I'm the artistic director of Pontiac Enchanté, and I guess I was the only person playing today. So thank you all very much for listening. Please join us again on April 25th. We're featuring the violinist Sofia Yatsiuk in a performance of music by composers like Ethel Smythe, Rebecca Clark, and Gabriel Fauré with pianist Søren Berry. So thank you all again very much for listening today. Enjoy the beautiful spring.